They thought the German Shepherd had turned dangerous. He hadn't turned anything. He had been doing his job the entire time, and they had been getting in the way. Dominic Reyes was 22 months old. He had been crying on and off since breakfast. Not the soft, tired crying, the kind that came with a full body clench, fists tight, face going red before it went pale, breath catching between each sound. His mother, Serena, was a pediatric home health nurse with 9 years of experience. She had spent those 9 years learning to read infant distress. She trusted that completely. She had no reason not to. Atlas was a 4-year-old German Shepherd who had lived in their house since he was 8 weeks old. He was not a protection dog. He was not trained for anything beyond basic obedience. He slept at the foot of their bed and waited at the door without being told, and kept himself 2 feet from Dominic at all times unless Dominic reached for him. He was, by every measure, predictable. That Tuesday morning, he stopped being predictable. Dominic cried on the kitchen floor, and Atlas crossed the room in 6 strides. His nose went to the boy's face before Serena could finish setting down her coffee. Not a sniff. A sustained press, jaw hovering at the toddler's chin, inhaling with the focus of something reading a document. Dominic screamed harder. Atlas pressed closer. Serena pulled him back by the collar. Atlas sat, waited 3 seconds, and went back to the boy's face. She watched it happen. She understood what she was watching. In 9 years, she had seen animals escalate around distressed children. She had written incident reports. She had explained to families what fixation looked like in large breeds near small children. She had the training. She had the pattern recognition. She had the professional certainty that told her without hesitation what this behavior meant. She was wrong about every part of it. Marcus came downstairs and stood in the doorway and watched Atlas press his nose toward their son's open mouth and said what Serena was already deciding. We need to put him out back, just until Dominic calms down. Their neighbor, Patrice, had stopped by that morning and heard it from the hallway without being asked. That's the right call, she said. You can't have a dog that size in a child's face like that. Serena was already moving toward the back door. She had the training. She had the consensus. She had everyone in the room agreeing with her. Atlas went outside. Dominic stopped crying within 7 minutes, which felt like proof. Serena held him, fed him 2 more spoonfuls of oatmeal, and put him down in the living room. She went to switch the laundry. The baby monitor sat on the dryer beside her from outside through the window. She could hear Atlas pacing the length of the back fence, not barking, moving, the rhythmic sound of a large dog that would not stop. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. She finished the laundry. She went back to check the monitor. Dominic was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after the body has used everything it had. She walked into the living room and stood over him. The pallor was wrong. Not dramatic, not alarming, just off. A faint grayness around his lips that didn't belong to a sleeping child. His hands were loosely curled. His breathing was shallow enough that she had to watch his chest for 4 full seconds before she was sure it was moving. She picked him up. The weight was wrong, not how he felt asleep. Something limp in him that had no business being there. She called for Marcus before the thought finished forming. At the emergency clinic 11 minutes later, Dominic's blood glucose came back at 36 milligrams per deciliter. A healthy toddler reads between 70 and 100. At 36, the brain begins losing its primary fuel. The symptoms, irritability, inexplicable crying, behavioral distress, are identical to 100 ordinary bad mornings. There is no visible sign that distinguishes them from anything else until the child stops moving. Dr. Valentina Cruz, pediatric endocrinology, looked at them across a narrow table and said, "He has a congenital glucose regulation disorder. It's been dropping episodically. The crying this morning wasn't distress from discomfort. It was his body signaling a drop you couldn't see." She paused. Another 12 minutes, and we would be managing seizure activity. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense? Until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Serena sat with what came next, Atlas pressing his nose into Dominic's face when the crying began. Not aggression, breath detection. His body reading the isoprene compounds that hypoglycemia releases into exhaled air. At concentrations, a dog detects up to 20 minutes before any monitor registers the shift. Atlas returning after every correction. Not defiance. An alarm that had no off switch. The pacing at the back fence. The only thing left when the door closed. The quiet in the living room. The 12 minutes she almost let pass. Dr. Cruz said Atlas had been performing an alert every time Dominic's glucose dropped. He had no formal training. No one selected him for medical detection work. He had learned it through proximity, through years of living close enough to one child to know when that child's chemistry meant danger. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. They brought Atlas inside that night. He walked directly to the living room and lay down beside the spot where Dominic had been sleeping. He put his chin on the floor and exhaled once, long and slow. Marcus said something. Serena didn't answer. She sat on the carpet with her back against the sofa and watched Atlas breathe and thought about the 12 minutes and the back fence and the sound of a dog who would not stop moving because he had nowhere left to go. Dominic now wears a small glucose monitor on his left arm. It sends alerts to their phones. The numbers stay managed. Most nights the monitor does its job. Every night Atlas lies 3 feet from Dominic's door with his nose pointed toward the gap at the bottom and his eyes open, still reading what the machines are only just learning to say. Next time, a dog who refused to let a family board their car, and the reason discovered 16 miles down the road that no one in that vehicle has ever fully spoken about since.